All right, welcome in to another episode of the Prodigy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris, and I was going to say on the other line, but we're actually doing this via Zoom. So right in the box to my left is PJ. Hey, what's up, man?
Let's get this going.
All right, and then under PJ, we have the handsome Stephen Owens. What's up, man?
What's going on? Feel all technologically advanced right now.
Yeah, right. And right next to him is the ever handsome Timothy Bartnick. What's up, Tim?
I don't feel as handsome anytime everybody handsome.
I'm sorry. It's just I get to see all you guys now.
I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, it's like Hollywood Squares where we're sharing a box.
Yeah. Punished.
All right, so for those of you guys that listen to us just through podcasts, we just made a YouTube page, so go follow our YouTube page. It's Prodigy Sports Podcast, just like everything else. Also, if you haven't and you just somehow stumbled upon our podcast, go check out episode 92, which is the first part of this mock draft. So we're going to kind of continue going. So we're going to do picks 17 through 32. I have the 17th pick, which is the Dallas Cowboys. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing started. So Dallas Cowboys, another semi-disappointing season. We thought we were going to make the playoffs, and Steve Owens' Philadelphia Eagles came in and took that from us. Thanks for that. We think we have our franchise quarterback. We have him franchise tagged. We paid Amari Cooper. We did lose Byron Jones, which the Prodigy Sports Podcast predicted. Thank you, Tim, for that prediction. Spot on. But we've had a lot of changes on defense this season coming up in the offseason, and a guy fell to us who we didn't think was going to fall. So unless you guys have a trade that's going to blow us away, I'm going to go ahead and make that pick. Does anybody have a trade? Nothing.
Cool. No.
Go ahead and break my heart.
All right. So with the 17th pick, we are going to select K'Lavon Chaisson from LSU. Sorry, Tim. So, Tim, since you
called it what I got here,
since you are apparently hurt from this, please tell me why.
Oh, man. K'Lavon Chaisson has sky-high pass rushing potential.
Tremendous burst. Great first step.
Yeah, he's probably going to play 3-4 outside linebacker, but Dallas runs the 4-3, so he will set the edge. But he can hold up against the run just fine. And despite the fact he only had 6.5 sacks last year for LSU, he just has all the potential in the world. So I was really hoping he would slip one more pick to Miami. We can use pass rush help for sure. So I think it was a great pick right there for Dallas.
That was one concern I had, Tim, was that obviously we do run a 4-3. But at this point, our real goal was to take one of the corners. We wanted, obviously, Okudah, or we thought C.J. Henderson was going to fall, but you obviously selected him earlier. So at that point, we just had to go best player available. Steve, do you have anything on this pick?
No, I just, like I said, what I was saying earlier, he has a tremendous first step, great speed. I definitely think he's better than a 3-4. So, but edge is a whole new ball game. It doesn't matter really what you play. As long as you can play the edge, they're only going to ask you to do one thing, and that's rush the quarterback. I think he can play a little more. Like, he has more elements to his game. I think he can drop back into coverage just fine as well. So if they wanted to run a zone blitz or something, he could be the guy on that side.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, he also has a slighter frame, so he has plenty of room to fill out his upper half to where he could be even stronger. And he's already shown the ability, like I said, to set the edge and rush the passer. So,
and if they run any kind of hybrid defense, which has become very popular in NFL, he could end up standing up and playing some linebacker as well there.
Yeah. Yeah, PJ, anything on this?
I just think Carson Wentz is going to have a new headache to deal with now.
Yeah.
Don't you think, Steve?
Oh, yeah.
What was his did you guys mention his combine time?
I don't think he ran.
Oh, okay. It says here 4.63, but that's not combine. So
yeah, that would have to be something else. He has no combine time here that I'm shown.
Yeah, it could be a pro day. They're trying to do some virtual pro days. Pro days is kind of – I miss them. You know, it helps in this evaluation because you get a little more on an individual level, and there's a lot of reporters that report on it. And it just makes this a little bit easier. This is a little bit harder now not having those pro days. You're going just off of combine, and maybe better for the GMs because now they're forced to go off of more of the analytics and film than, somebody coming into a room and having an interview and blowing you away with an interview because they were able to tell you what you wanted to hear for 1 second. So now you have to go off of what you hear and what you've seen from coaches and stuff.
Yeah, anybody could fake it. You have a 6-hour interview with somebody. You go to dinner. You could fake it. You can win somebody over in that time, but you can still be a, your true colors don't come out. Sometimes that's a bad thing. So I agree with everything you said. Tim, you are up again, my friend. The Miami Dolphins are on the board with the 18th pick. Take it on over.
So Miami, with our first pick, we took Isaiah Simmons, linebacker out of Clemson. Another pick for the defense. And as everyone knows, or most people know, we brought in a ton of players on defense: Byron Jones, Kyle Van Noy, Shaq Lawson, Emmanuel Agba, and a couple other special teams filler players with Grugier Hill and Landon Roberts at linebacker. So the board right now, I would like to go safety with McKinney being best player on my board.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate to draft need over the best available talent. But if you look at the tackle for Miami, we're just, oh man, the cupboards are bare. We have Julian Davenport, and maybe we can slide Jesse Davis to right tackle. I think he looks better at guard.
Don't do it, Tim.
So with the 18th pick in the draft, Miami Dolphins select Josh Jones, tackle, Houston.
Dang. One of my other teams was obviously hoping for that.
So Josh Jones projects to be a left tackle. He has very, very good athleticism, 6'5", 320. One of those guys is when you get to this point after the first 4 big offensive linemen are taken, it comes down to potential and where you want to go. We said in earlier podcasts that we knew there was going to be a decent run on tackles in this draft. It just depends on kind of pick your preference at this point. It might be a little high for Jones. Some of the big boards and mock drafts, I've seen him going anywhere from 20 to 35. But just based on Miami's need, I have to make that pick at this point.
Answers. Go ahead, PJ. You guys have
So I was just wondering, that was one spot where I thought there was a possibility that you could go after a running back. Was there any consideration to taking a back at that point?
The fantasy guru here.
Oh, that's a great question. Miami obviously was last in the league in rushing last year, having Ryan Fitzpatrick lead the team in rushing. I think this is a fairly – we talked about it earlier. There's quite a bit of talent, maybe not necessarily that bell cow back in this year's draft, but it was just a little too high for me at 18, maybe even in the first round. DeAndre Swift projects to be the best overall back in this draft, according to what I've read. But Miami has brought in and done quite a few evaluations. We were able to meet with J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State right before the draft. I'm very high on Dobbins. I think he may have the best projection as a 3-down player. Some people will say it's Swift. Some people say it's Jonathan Taylor. But based on the depth, I think in the second round, if you can get Dobbins in the second round, if you can get Cam Akers, if you can get Edwards-Helaire I think all of these guys not only have a great chance to help their teams in the first year, but could impact in fantasy as well. And we've seen that in past years where you have guys, Kamara coming out in the third round and surprising people. Kareem Hunt was a third-round pick. So there's a lot of these guys you can have a little bit later in the draft. So that's an excellent question. But for me, and based on the board, I think we could either wait until that third pick at 26 for a running back or maybe even let one slide in the second round.
And this is a team that is near and dear to your heart, right?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. Bleed aqua and orange. It's definitely my team. So.
All right.
So, Tim, you have another pick on the board. You are also I almost said Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. So go ahead.
So the Raiders, with our first pick, we did take the corner, CJ Henderson, which is definitely going to help the secondary. And if you look at this team, they made a great amount of moves in the offseason, more so on defense than offense. But we talked earlier about the Aguilar, the Witten, and the O'Leary additions, but I still don't think they have a receiver that is heads and tails above the rest. Aguilar, you can ask Steve.
We've heard plenty about it.
The one thing he struggles with is catching the football. So despite being a first-round pick, they have Tyrell Williams. They brought in Zay Jones, but no one really, has that ability to do anything special to me. So that being said, wide receiver is the need we're going to fill for the Raiders. And we're going to go ahead and take Justin Jefferson, wide receiver from
PJ,
LSU.
you cannot draft all the wide receivers, man.
No, but the Green Bay Packers are very upset by this.
So
That's a great pick.
appreciate it. There is a lot of receiving talent out there. He's the best available one I have on my list. We talked about him a week or so ago. He's kind of above average at everything. Obviously, having Joe Burrow as your quarterback is going to make people look good. But 6'1", 200, 205, and kind of jack of all trades, master of none. High points the ball fairly well, run after the catch, creates a little bit of separation, but can improve in a lot of areas. So at this point with the receiver class, the top three are gone, and it's kind of pick your poison, whether you want to go with Jefferson or Mims, T. Higgins. It's completely preferential at this point. And one interesting note rather quickly is I read today that Denzel Mims played last year with a broken hand. I don't know if anybody else saw that.
Yeah, I was reading that, and he still did pretty well. They're saying that just shows the signs of his toughness.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
I have a question, I guess, for PJ. So, PJ, fantasy is your thing. Like, I think that's above everything with team and everything. You're fantasy first, it seems. So, that was a position where we talked about kind of off air. If they take one of the first big three receivers, how that was going to be a big fantasy impact. They get Justin Jefferson there. So how does that feel, I guess, for fantasy purposes? Because it feels like a great fit. He can possibly go in and be the number one there.
Yeah, he might end up being the number one rookie receiver this year. I think he's a good sleeper pick in fantasy drafts. He had a really good combine. So I think the speed was the one thing they were questioning, and he ran a pretty good 40.
4.43.
Yeah, a lot better than they thought he would run. So his stock went way up, and I think it's a great pick. That's the Raiders he might be their best receiver right out of the gate.
Yeah, he's been mostly known to play the slot, but he can play inside and outside. He lined up everywhere for LSU. He would have definitely been a weapon for anyone in the slot, but he definitely has the size to play the outside. And I think he, like you said, he will be Oakland's best receiver because he will be used all over the field, not just in one role.
And from a fantasy standpoint, you got to help what it does for Josh Jacobs, because now that's just one more person they have to cover on the outside, and it opens up for a kid who had a pretty decent rookie season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And maybe they'll throw to Josh Jacobs more this year than they did last year. So that could be a possibility. Short little passes.
For sure. All right, let's keep it moving. With the 20th pick, we're going to head down to Florida with Steve and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'd like to say that we have a lot of holes, especially in the secondary. We are kind of financially strapped as well, so we would love to open up the boards for anybody who would like to trade up here. Minnesota would be nice. Maybe Atlanta want to sneak back up.
Yeah,
Any of you guys interested?
We like Justin Jefferson, but he just went, so we're just gonna hold here. And we have some needs too, and we have limited cap space, so we'll keep our picks.
Anybody from PJ's side?
I think the exact same sentiment. If Justin Jefferson was available, Green Bay might have traded up for that pick.
Noted. Very hard to trade out of the 20s, and I just thought I'd offer it up. I did offer the first pick for them as well. Tim, you're also a no-go?
No, nothing for me that either of my –
Well, they have a desperate need at corner, and I was eyeing Christian Fulton, the LSU ties, but I know they also have a pretty good need at safety, so I think I'd rather have the number one safety over the number 3 corner. I'll take Xavier McKinney.
Okay. I was going to throw one last, I guess, maybe trade offer out there.
Oh, I already made the pick, man.
All right. All right. So give us a little
Look it
information.
up. I seen you in the last second.
I threw him up.
That's when you tap the mic. Hey.
Yeah. No, it's all good. You know, you're too slow. Too slow. Go ahead, Tim.
So Xavier McKinney is someone that I seriously considered at 18 for Miami. He is the number 1 rated safety on my board as well. Projects as kind of that same thing I said about Jefferson. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife, can do a little bit of everything. From my notes, he ran a 4.63 at the combine, which isn't slow, but to play that back half just kind of scared me a little bit. I know he is very, very good in the box. And with Miami already having Bryce McCain and Eric Rowe, which doesn't sound great on paper, but Rowe did very well as the strong kind of covering tight ends. And it kind of made me nervous to take another Alabama safety after what happened with Minka. So I think it's a good pick. It definitely helps Jacksonville, who, like you said, has needs all over the board.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I could list you the secondary. It's DJ Hayden, Jared Wilson, Ronnie Harrison, and Rashawn Melvin. None of these names really blow you away. But I think that if worst case scenario, you could survive with Hayden and Melvin and maybe pick up a corner in the next round. Safety seemed like it needed to be addressed more, in my opinion, so I went safety.
No, I agree. If you look at Jacksonville and what you did at the 9th pick, was able to get Derek Brown, right? So starting to rebuild that defense. And we've seen just tons of people in the last year and a half, whether it be through retirement, trade, it doesn't matter. They've lost so many people. So you definitely have to go back and restock the cupboard, if you will.
Yeah, they made it all the way to the AFC Championship game behind a stout defense. So they've done it before. They were actually probably a quarter away from going to the Super Bowl, and everything fell apart. So let's see if they can restock it. But Steve, you have another pick right now. So it's your Philadelphia Eagles on the board.
And we missed the receiver that everybody projects to us as in Jefferson, which I still think will actually happen in reality, or Minnesota would jump in front of us, which you brought up, Chris. So I am also open to trading this pick.
I'll throw out Indianapolis Colts here. Going to throw out we have the number 34 overall pick, which is Washington's pick. And I would also throw in our 3rd round pick, which is number 75 for number 21. All right, 21. Yeah. Any interest in that? Any wiggle room? You know, open to talking, hoping to kind of slide in front of Miami, you know, because quarterback might fall to them. And, you know.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I don't have my trade evaluator up right now.
Sure. Yeah, me neither, which is perfect. I know I could tell you the value of my 2 picks. So if you look up your value, the value of the 2 picks I have is 560 and 215. So I'm not 100% sure what the value was for that one.
Tim, do you have that up right now or no?
Philly and Indy. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I should get more, but I want to see how close we are. Okay, that's what I wanted to do, but I already.
No, it's not.
Oh, you don't have it on. You have it on free for all. That's why.
Yeah.
Now, let me just. What did you say now? You wanted to give me
34 and 75.
So 34 and 75. So that's a second and a third to get to the first.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get that other second off of you?
Can it be a future 3rd?
That would be the same as a third right here.
Well, no, I'll give you the 3rd too. I'm saying I'll give you the 3rd now and a 3rd in the future.
I really feel like it's for you to come up. You have to give me both of those seconds for it.
Yeah.
I'll even throw in a 4th.
Mm.
1st and a 4th for both of your seconds.
Do I like Jordan Love that much though? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of hype on him. I think that's a little too rich for me, so I'm going to stay. But maybe I'll try to make another deal in a little bit.
All right. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. I think it's wrong, but you're entitled to it. You're tacky and I hate you.
You just want these 2 second rounders. That's why.
See me after class, Freddie.
All right, so go ahead.
Okay, so I have a plethora of needs, and we've been tied to every receiver. And if I'm playing the part of the GM, or am I supposed to play as their GM?
A little bit of both. I mean, you can
Because
even
I
hey,
see them-
you wanted to trade that pick for a player, somebody that's rumored to be available at the wide receiver position. I'm just saying, like, you can throw that out there on the table too.
No, because I was saying, like, for me personally, I'm leaning Kenneth Murray
Okay.
with the pick because I like, and we haven't had a linebacker. I think the Eagles haven't drafted a first-round linebacker
Like
since
30 years.
87-ish.
Yeah.
So
PJ was a young lad.
That's an awesome. I love if you make this pick for the Eagles.
and everything I'm saying, like everything I've seen is if Jefferson does go in all these mocks, they're still just going to go with the next receiver. And I would rather draft the number 1 linebacker. So I'm going to go ahead and take Kenneth Murray, even if I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's the best move for Philly. Let's not take the 5th best receiver. There's plenty of depth in this draft to get something in the 2nd round. So lock me up, Kenneth Murray on the board.
Hey, Steve, I just was wondering, why is it that the Eagles have refused to draft a linebacker? Is there something like philosophical with that, or?
Yeah, they just don't value the position. They figure if you have a strong enough secondary and a strong enough front 4, the middle can be kind of soft. If you don't have enough time and you can cover well enough with the corners, it doesn't matter about the linebackers. They usually just look for somebody that kind of fills the gap, which they brought in Jatavis Brown, and I really like that signing because he was good in some situations where there was a lot of injury in it was San Diego at the time, so I can say San Diego when he played. It's now LA, the Chargers. So to me, I like the signing, but I think it's really impossible to pass up either him or Queen. So
what made you take Kenneth Murray over Patrick Queen? You guys feel that Philly needs some more of a strong side than a weak side?
yeah, and just he has sideline to sideline ability. They both do. I mean, I think Queen is faster. Just I really need a run stuffer because of the wide 9 technique. They tend to sit wider and they don't really take on much of the guard play. So the guard gets to the 2nd level, have to have block shedding ability.
Who's he going to take over for out of these 3 between Edwards, Duke Riley, and Nathan Jerry? Who's he going to probably eventually take over the Nathan Jerry spot on outside?
Any one of the 3.
He's an upgrade over all of them.
Edwards is an undrafted guy out of Wisconsin. Jerry's been around since, 2017, hasn't done anything. Duke Riley was a trade pickup from last year.
Yeah, I remember that one.
But they also brought in Jatavis Brown, which I expect the ending would be Kenneth Murray and Jatavis Brown starting because they really run nickel as their base. They say it's 4-3, but it's mostly just 2 linebackers on the field. Chris, you have something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything you said, I guess the difference between them, Kenneth Murray, he's a tackle machine. Sophomore year, 155 tackles. He only had 103 last year. Their 40 times are about the same. And Kenneth Murray actually was the defensive play caller on the field for them all 3 years. So high football IQ. I think that's a great pick. He was on my board too. So
one of my favorite Eagle players of all time, which is kind of an irrelevant name, which is a Jason Avant, who was just a sure-handed receiver. I just liked his. Yeah. He recently came out and said that this guy is the next Jeremiah Trotter, but faster. You should draft him instead of the 5th best receiver. And I just couldn't agree with someone more. And it wasn't coming from the odd fan. Like the Eagles have a lot of injuries at receiver last year. If that same core is healthy, were they not as what we thought they were last year, minus Aguilar? Everybody was like, this is the best receiving core in the league. Then bing, 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 bing. 3 injuries later, they need receiver help.
Yeah, having
They're
quarterbacks play wide receiver.
And Kenny Stills is on the market. I'll trade for him. 4th round pick, 5th round pick, I could have him.
Yep. And there's still plenty of guys to get in the 2nd round too. 3rd round, plenty of wide receivers.
And you're helping out your defense because you just picked up Darius Slay, and then now you're getting one of the top linebackers in the draft. So good defense helps your offense.
Howie Roseman is a magician when it comes to the numbers. He's a fantastic trader. He does great things with the cap, but his drafting ability is average at best.
All right. So on the board now is the Minnesota Vikings. Literally, two of the guys on our board just went. So I have I guess, a either or. Kenneth Murray was definitely going to fit better, but we just need kind of linebacker help in general. And I think Patrick Queen is still a fantastic prospect. So we're not even looking to trade it because we have this other first rounder. So we're going to take Patrick Queen with the 22nd pick to help out our defense. So if anybody's got anything on that while I write this down, go ahead.
I think it's a great upgrade over Ben Gideon. Pairing him with Kendricks and Anthony Barr, you can't go wrong. The defense is in flux. They did release quite a few players. Trey Waynes signed with Cincinnati, I believe. They cut quite a few people. I know.
Yeah, Xavier Rhodes, he's gone now. He signed with Indianapolis. Pete, you got something?
Yeah, for fantasy purposes, I think this, if you're in IDP leagues, this is a rookie I would draft. He's going to rack up the tackles. So Patrick Queen in Minnesota, not bad.
Yep, I would say you still need a receiver, but why not stack at one position like you did? I could definitely see this has become more of a run-heavy team. And they have two fantastic tight ends. I could see a lot more two tight end sets to get away from the receiving that Corey you don't have right now.
The pick was definitely going to be Josh Jones. That was the top person I had. I was hoping that he would fall. I kind of looked at the board, hoping things would go a certain way. It didn't. So at that point, Kenneth Murray was the pick, and then you guys, obviously, you snatched him up. So offensive line's a huge need, but like you said, we go to two tight end set, it's going to help out with the run big time. So it helps. Every little thing helps at this point. So all right, so I have another pick. So the Atlanta Falcons are on the board. We traded out of this pick back to number 20, or from 23, or from 16 to 23. Gosh, sorry, fumbling my words here. But so at this point, we still have some needs. If Patrick Queen was there, we probably would have taken him. Josh Jones, same thing. I'm going to actually take the best corner left that I have on the board, and that is Jeff Gladney from TCU. We need some corner help. Our defense has not been very great. Mediocre teams have just passed all over us last season, and, this is the third best corner. There is small injury concerns. He had a sore knee, which is why he didn't do anything in the Senior Bowl, and he has had a torn ACL in his career. But Steve has said ACLs, they're whatever at this point. And like PJ said, he is yet another year removed from injury. So anybody else got anything on that while I write this down?
No, I mean, it's cornerback is basically at this point, it's that next tier. It's all about your preference because, like you said, we talked about this before. You had Gladney. I have Fulton above him. Mm-hmm. But it just depends on what you put, what you value for your corners.
Yeah, it's definitely an upgrade for the secondary. Last year, 2 years ago, they took Isaiah Oliver, I want to say out of Baylor. And they have Keanu Neal and Ricardo Allen at safety, so they could definitely use an upgrade across from Oliver. What I have for notes on the kid is he's more scrappy than anything. It helps his game to be in press man a little bit more than off coverage. So we'll see how they deploy him.
Well, they run that Seattle.
Yeah, which kind of makes me a little bit weary if they do a lot more cover three because he's not as aggressive when he's not allowed to press guys at the line. So we'll see. I mean, he's definitely a top 40 pick, top 30 pick. So he's got athleticism, recovery. I just think it would be better for him to be an a press man. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. With the next pick, PJ, you're finally up. The New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, so New Orleans, we've enjoyed some success the last few years. We feel like the window is still there, the opportunity to win a championship. Being this late in the first round, I was willing to take best player available. If either one of those linebackers fell, even though the Saints don't have like a serious need at linebacker, we have some age in a couple of the positions. But since both of them were selected, Emmanuel Sanders comes and fills a need at wide receiver. So we're definitely not going to pick a first round receiver. I will also go with cornerback, and I will take Trevon Diggs from Alabama. I think he's a little bit bigger, a little bit more of an athlete than Christian Fulton. So, and I've done really well with Alabama players, so I'm taking him.
Like I said, same thing with the corners. It's all about personal preference. None of these guys are wrong. They're all that first, second round fringe talent. It's just whatever fits your defense better. If that fits for New Orleans, it's a better pick. I still have Christian Fulton a little bit higher than both of them. But, on draft day, someone's going to fall. Everybody's war room's a little bit different as well. So it's a very good pick. I like it.
Yeah, definitely a guy that fits more into a zone scheme. So I would have liked to have seen him more so in the Atlanta system, but you can't go wrong at this point. It's kind of pick your poison. And we know how good Marshawn Lattimore has been since he's come into the league. So they do have a couple other decent corners under contract with PJ Williams, and Patrick Robinson is getting a little long in the tooth. They were able to get Janoris Jenkins from the Giants. So they've definitely upgraded. This is a team that's Super Bowl or bust at this point.
Yeah.
The Emmanuel Sanders signing in the offseason kind of takes away the need for receiver. So I like boosting the secondary. They're pretty set everywhere on offense. You almost have to go defense. So to me, it's a good selection.
Yeah, I think, and Janoris, I don't know, he's got to be getting up there in the tooth, right? He's in his 30s, right? Mid-30s maybe?
It's so hurtful, man.
Yeah, he's 31. He'll be
okay.
32 in late October. So
okay, so he's still got some couple years left. But definitely, it's not that he's forever there, and he's not a world-class player anymore. So,
and you're going from a guy who's 5'10" to 6'2".
Yeah,
so
6'2".
Definitely, the cornerbacks today's NFL are becoming bigger, stronger, faster. There's a lot less of those smallish 5'9", 5'10s like we used to see. Yeah. So I like the pick.
Thanks.
All right. I'm back on the board. Minnesota Vikings again with the 25th pick. We'd be interested in trading down possibly. If not, we have a player in mind. If somebody wants to take over Minnesota and I can negotiate as Indianapolis, we could always do that too. I feel like I'd be slightly cheaper. I see Miami picks next, so slightly concerned they might take somebody that we might love, if that makes sense. So any guys besides Tim that would like to take over? I see Tim say
we love you, but we're not in love with you.
Nothing? All right, cool. All right, so we're going to go with a position of need. Our offensive line is pretty terrible. I actually went to, speaking outside of the GM, I went to the Bears-Vikings game this year, and poor Kirk Cousins was just dying. It was horrible, even though actually Mitchell Trubisky got hurt in that game. But Kirk Cousins, they couldn't do anything. He couldn't stay on the field. It was really tough. So we're going to go with the best offensive lineman left on the board for us, which is Austin Jackson out of USC. Projected to play tackle, but we just need help. We need somebody to protect old Kirky, and we just gave him more guaranteed money, so we need him to play. Anybody got anything on old Jackson here?
This is a great draft for offensive tackles. We had like 4 picks in the first 16, right? So this
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 is
the
our
one
sixth tackle taken.
Yeah.
25 picks. So it's a huge position of need, obviously.
Yeah, Jackson's an interesting one. From USC, he had a better year 2 years ago than this year, but he actually donated bone marrow to his sister. So the fact that he was able to go through such a intensive surgery and not miss any time is very impressive and speaks to his character and strength as a person and a player. So he's someone that I was looking at, not necessarily maybe for the next pick, but he is on the Dolphins' radar for sure, being a tackle.
High character for sure.
All right. Well, like you said, the Miami Dolphins are now on the board. So, Tim, you're up, man.
Appreciate it. This is a very, very difficult selection for the Miami Dolphins. We can go a number of ways. Most, as we alluded to, Jordan Love is on the board. Looks to be more of a project. Depends on how high are you, what's your preference, pick your poison. And
You already have a project.
yeah, we do have a project in Josh Rosen, depending on what and as PJ alluded to, there are a number of running backs available. But looking at – this is difficult. Looking at my board and the way I think that Miami should go, at 26, the Miami Dolphins select Yetur Gross-Matos, edge rusher from Penn State.
I had a feeling you were going to go that way.
All right. Oh, good thing. Didn't trade up.
Should have took that Eagles, man. You're being greedy with those 2 second-rounders.
I mean, he's still falling, so it wasn't the wrong move. I don't know.
We'll find out. You're in the second round, then no. Because we're not trading with you.
So this is a guy that kind of lives in the backfield. 94 tackles, 34.5 for loss, and 17 sacks in 2 seasons. He's a little slow in processing sometimes, but has great strength, length, athleticism. He has burst, power, and fluidity. So while we did want K'Lavon Chaisson, who projects a little bit higher, I felt that edge rusher is something that could be helped if you looked at San Fran and Philly and some of these other teams that deploy just waves and waves of pass rushers. And the fact that when you draft, or when I believe when teams draft, you want to draft to your division because your main goal should be winning that division. So when you look at the AFC East, it doesn't scream. Now that Brady's gone, there's not a lot of quarterbacks. So if you can disrupt the passer, whether it be Darnold or Josh Allen or whomever New England decides to deploy, if it's going to be, I don't even know if they're going to go with Hoyer or Stidham or what, but improving the pass rush is something you can never have enough of them. And the Dolphins definitely failed to hit on that when they took Charles Harris 2 years ago in the first round at the 22nd pick. So definitely a tough pick. I didn't think I was going to be in this situation where the board fell the way that it did. I think the 3 other GMs made some excellent picks that kind of left me in a spot I didn't want to be in. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Yetur Gross-Matos, edge defender, Penn State, 26.
Yeah, guy had 35 tackles for loss in the last 2 years. So it's like you said, he's disruptive. And I think between y'all's offseason moves for your defense and free agency, the money you spent, and the way you're drafting, I mean, you guys' defense is going to be very formidable. Like it's really coming together. You should be very excited as a Dolphins fan. Oh,
absolutely. And it may seem a little overkill, going with Isaiah Simmons and Gross-Matos, but the front 7 is just going to be loaded with Wilkins as a first rounder last year, Kyle Van Noy, Jerome Baker, Emmanuel Agba, Shaq Lawson, Raekwon McMillan.
It's rotation,
Oh, it's absolute rotation. There's not that one superstar standout guy, but like you said, defense, it wins championships.
Yeah,
and part of me wanted to go running back. I just I've spoken enough. I could talk Dolphins for another 3 hours. So
yeah.
On to the next pick. If anyone has anything they'd like to add about the Gross-Matos?
No, he seems like you said, it's too early for running back. We all kind of agree on that, and especially in this draft. The Gross Matos is nice because he can play. I think he can play several positions for you, which seems scheme versatile is a big thing in New England, and now New England of the South, Miami. They're going to want you to. That's what kind of took Minkah Fitzpatrick out of there. He wanted one position to be great at, where they're asking you to be just at least good at several positions. He's the kind of guy that he's going to do whatever you tell him to. So it's a perfect fit with culture and everything.
What's funny about Minkah is after he went to Pittsburgh and dominated and had however many 6-7 interceptions, and they stuck him at free safety, he was great. And then in the offseason, now he's complaining he wants more responsibility and wants to move around. It's like, that's what we were trying to get you to do in Miami,
He
buddy.
just didn't want to lose.
Yeah, he didn't want to be in Miami. And the thing is, I feel like Miami is set up very nicely for the future. Things go one or two ways on offense, and I feel like you guys got something real that you're building there. And it's like Steve and I talked about, the money that you guys spent is not for so many years down the road. It's you guys can get out of these contracts, so you're not going to be in cap hell, basically. So,
And the great part about it is we still have 2 second rounds this year and then another 2 firsts and 2 seconds next year. So if we can hit on a few of these, we'll be in great shape.
all the draft capital in the world. Very envious. All right. So, all right, Seahawks are on the board. We're pretty ready to, I think, be in the conversation to compete year in and year out. We have, in our opinion, the best quarterback in the league, Russell Wilson. Obviously, everybody likes that Patrick Mahomes guy. He's pretty good. But our guys already won a Super Bowl as well. We want to keep him upright. So with our pick, we are going with an interior lineman, center Cesar Ruiz. We've seen interior linemen taken and transform an offensive lineman. I know he's not a guard like Quinn Nelson, but at this point, we feel like we can still solidify the offensive line in other places, possibly through the draft. And this guy is the biggest difference maker on our board. So, Tim, I'll go to you if you have anything on him, since I know you've been studying O-line.
This is a guy, played at Michigan, can play guard and center, and he's been flying up draft boards as of late, originally projected a second-round pick. And it's someone that I seriously considered for Miami at the very last pick. It was a struggle, especially, like you said, since we focused on D, probably should look at that O-line a little bit more. But it's definitely an upgrade, and Seattle's neglected the offensive line for so long. And I really like what they're doing out there. We know that they're a perennial Super Bowl contender. They took Metcalf last year, who, if I know I want PJ to weigh in on this because he's a potential sleeper for next year, maybe not even a sleeper. He's supposed to be pretty high picked. So, and I had Chris Carson on my team last year, who was extremely productive for me. So just adding to that offensive line helps everyone on this roster be a better player. It doesn't seem like a huge pick at the time, but it's someone that's just going to pay very, very big dividends for Seattle. So speaking of Metcalf, PJ, can you give us a little insight for this coming year?
Yeah, I think he's going to make a big jump this year. Mostly in the area of targets. I think he's just going to get a lot more targets. I think they're going to trust him. He surprised me. I had him down on my rookie draft board in a dynasty league last year, and out of all the rookie receivers, he's the one that impressed me the most. And I think he's got a great quarterback that's going to throw to him, and getting a good offensive lineman will only help matters. So I would target DK Metcalf in most fantasy drafts. Probably you could get him in the 4th round, I'd say. You might have to go up a little bit higher in a dynasty maybe.
It's so interesting with these receivers because you never know, and we've seen a lot of receivers go in this draft. But if you look back in the past few years, Michael Thomas is the prime example. He went in the 2nd round after we saw all these guys go. We saw Josh Dotson go, and we saw Corey Coleman go.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the kid from Minnesota,
Treadwell. Yeah.
Treadwell go. And then here comes Michael Thomas. And obviously you're put in a situation with Drew Brees and you succeed. But then you go to a DK Metcalf and also a 2nd-round pick. But it's not necessarily your talent, but look where you land.
Yeah.
So you're playing for Drew Brees and Russell Wilson. You're in such a great spot. So it's going to be interesting for this year to see where these receivers specifically go. I mean, you might be the best receiver in Jerry Jeudy, but we have him mocked to the Redskins right now. Is Haskins going to bring out his true potential? We don't know. Or who
Does
the
quarterback
I think
make the receiver better, or does the receiver make the quarterback better?
Exactly. I think the Broncos
It's
is
CeeDee
where
Lamb.
So, I mean, is Drew Lock the guy to push him over the top? So it's definitely going to be interesting to see, is it the talent of the receiver or the quarterback? What came first?
Yeah.
So,
Chicken
I mean,
and egg.
that right there is a whole episode once the draft's over. Just
sorry, I didn't mean to get into fantasy
no,
talk.
you're perfect. I love it. A lot of people actually hit me up on social media and will tell me, like, we like it when you tease things that are coming. So everything you're saying, I think is great. I think it totally fits. So, all right. So let's kind of continue on. So the Baltimore Ravens are on the clock. So Steve, take over.
Yeah, we would definitely like some linebacker help. The best two linebackers in this draft went. We think we're still in the Super Bowl running every year, so we're looking to solidify our defense a little bit more, or maybe find another weapon to add to our offense on the receiving side. So let me just look at a few things here. I really wanted a linebacker for this team.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you guys did pick up an extra second rounder this year when you made the Hayden Hurst trade. So, when we talk about wide receiver being so deep, that's, you might not have to address that right now. You could fill another position of need.
Yeah, I know they run that 3-4. I know the conversation about Bond has been out there. I think that he could stand up and be an edge rusher for a team like this, because I do believe, didn't they franchise tag? Who did they franchise tag? Judon?
Yeah.
But I think that they really want to franchise tag and trade him. I don't know if he's going to be there. So that is one question that I have. And I know that they want a receiver, but I don't really feel like any of these receivers are a fit for what we're trying to do. So I'm going to take Bond.
Zach Braun from Wisconsin, right?
Correct. Gives me an edge rusher.
I said Baltimore defense is going to be stacked.
Yeah, they are. I'm glad Baltimore didn't reach for a receiver here. You guys took the first receiver off the board last year, out of the whole draft, and obviously it didn't fall that way this year. But I think that's a good pick, and like you said, he can be productive in either place. And you were right, Judon is franchise tagged, and they don't want to pay him because they have to pay a bunch of other guys coming up. So.
Right. And, I mean, like you said, with the adding to the receiver, they also took Miles Boykin last year, who they were high on last year. I don't think they fell off that much, and I think it's more about the passing progression of Lamar Jackson to get him better, to make the receivers there. Because some of the receivers they have are all right. They're not spectacular, but you got Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, Hollywood.
Right. So I think that we will be adding to that core in this draft. It's just not in this position. I think the best thing for us was linebacker, PJ.
Yeah, the one thing is they lost C.J. Mosley this year, so they definitely need another linebacker. So Zach is more like an outside linebacker, right?
Right, more of an edge.
C.J. was more of an inside linebacker.
They actually lost him the year before.
They lost him last year?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what he played for. So who did they ever replace C.J. with?
It was a plethora of guys. I think they had a series of injuries there. It was L.J. Fort. They had like 3 or 4 guys deep at that point.
And I think they actually used where they were moving some strong safeties into the box, because they did trade for Marcus Peters last year, and Marlon Humphreys developed into an excellent boundary corner. They have Earl Thomas at free. So I think Baltimore, just with all the players they have, they were able to pick up Calais Campbell. So while traditionally their base defense is a 3-4 with 2 inside linebackers, I think that they're able to just kind of plug and play a move and make guys they don't have other than LJ Fort and maybe – I don't even know who else they have. But I think they were bringing strong safeties into the box and stuff like that, whether it be Chuck Clark or somebody, just to be able to fill that gap. So
yeah, dream scenario was finding Murray or Queen here for them, but they
Queen
have
would be a great fit.
yeah, they have issues all across the board. And like I said, from everything I've heard, Matt Judon is basically trade bait at this point.
another interesting thing on going back to Zach Bond. So recently it came up in the last couple of days that he tested positive for a diluted substance or substance thing. So he had a diluted sample at the combine. And what it turned out to be and what they said on his story is that he drank so much water to try to look like he gained weight and put it on the scales. He was drinking water. So he came with a diluted sample. Now, the interesting thing about that is under last year's CBA, he would have been flagged and penalized for one strike for having the checkmark diluted sample. But under this new contract that they just agreed to, it doesn't count as any strike. So I don't think it's going to affect his draft stock. So he'll still be late first, early second, depending. But that's an interesting thing. But as a player, he's just got IQ. And going to Baltimore with IQ, he's just going to excel in the front seven. Quickness, burst, hand usage.
Right.
I mean, Baltimore's going to put him in a position where he can be successful.
He kind of lacks a true position. I mean, they could probably end up putting him inside like who was McClellan? Remember when he came out of
Shea
Boise
McClellan,
State?
yeah.
Kind of didn't really have a position. I think they're gonna just move these guys around and put them in position to succeed. So why not add to the linebacking core?
Yep. And last year, 19.5 tackles for loss. He had 12.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. I mean, an interception. So he was all over the place. He's going to fit in really well with that defense. So, all right, let's move on. PJ, the Tennessee Titans are on the board.
All right. Now, I know Chris says that I usually think fantasy first, but this
So
is
running back here.
This is kind of the anti-fantasy pick here because I don't think Derrick Henry is going to be back with the Titans in 2 years. I think they're willing to. I mean, he's got a lot of carries. They're going to run. Run the wheels.
You're taking a running back.
I am taking a running back.
You literally every single pick you make is.
But listen here. I'm taking Jonathan Taylor. I think he fits in that system, just like they did with Henry. His first year, if you remember, DeMarco Murray was their running back, and Henry didn't see the field too much. Maybe a couple goal line carries. They can ease Taylor into the system. This guy, I know they could draft one next year, but Taylor's a special running back. He's faster than Saquon Barkley. His production in college was better than Saquon Barkley and just everybody else. Just because his one knock is that he's not comfortable receiving the ball. Well, I think in Tennessee system, they don't have to have a receiver or a running back that can receive the ball.
So let me
He's a north and south runner.
Let me ask you, though. So Tennessee just went to the AFC title game, and they're looking to compete. So why not go with a running back that is the counter to Derrick Henry? And you can still have a production – like you're trying to win a title looking into this.
I'm just going with what I'm throwing myself in there too, okay? It's not just the regular GM. So I think there's a good chance Henry could be injured this year. And then
gosh, Christian McCaffrey all over again.
But how many carries did he have last year?
I mean, Jonathan Taylor's had how many carries in college? I mean, he's had way more carries than every other running back that's on the board of the top 3.
Yeah. I love this pick for the franchise, the future. Once Henry's gone, Jonathan Taylor is going to pick up right where Henry left off, and I think he's even a better player. So we're going with Jonathan Taylor.
The household of Steve and Tim. What do you guys think?
Oh,
I'll take it. Taylor, you did say that one knock was his receiving skills, which I do definitely agree with. However, the kid has a lot of miles on the tires.
Yeah.
He did have all those yards and a ton of production at Wisconsin. But, yeah, almost 1,000 carries in 3 years. And running backs, we don't say they're a dime a dozen because McCaffrey just got paid, but
they're a dime a dozen, though.
Yeah, you can kind of get one. There's still a few on the street. You can get one later in the draft. That's why I was kind of hesitant earlier to take one to Miami. But I see the thought process and why you would want to take a running back, because if we know they've franchised Derrick Henry, but if he does get hurt, what's Tennessee looking like? Then you're putting everything on Tannehill, and that's just setting him up for failure. I can say that as a Dolphins fan. He's in a position now where he has
No, Gase set you up for failure.
Fair
Let's
point.
get that right.
But they have receivers. They have a decent O-line, even though they lost Conklin.
They could have probably answered that.
So-
right tackle.
Oh, there wasn't really
But
any tackles available
Dennis
there.
Kelly is serviceable. I mean,
I guess when you put in that context, Tim, that does make some sense. Like if something happens to Henry, you have a Henry style back to just kind of throw in, and in that
well,
case,
that if you're going to live by that running back sword, at least you have a dual-headed monster that you're going to get worn down either way.
You're not going to draft a kid saying based on someone's going to get hurt, but it just complements to your team philosophy of we run the ball and live off play action, which goes to their team's strengths at this point. So I don't have Tennessee as my team. I don't know what their glaring needs are, but
Probably some.
being at the latter point of the first round, I think it's a decent pick. I mean,
Didn't they just trade their defensive tackle, a nose tackle or something?
So if
They couldn't use
Tennessee,
the nose, probably like Blacklock or
But
something.
still.
I just don't think Jonathan Taylor is going to make it out of the first round. So that's part of the reason why we did it.
There's no
If they
right
can
or wrong.
guarantee get him at the second round, that'd be great. But it worked so well for them when they did this exact same scenario with Henry. And again, you're right. I think he has a lot of miles on his tires. So 1 year of not getting a whole lot of carries
yeah,
could only help him. And the way they are looking at it, and the way running back is being valued in the league right now, it doesn't really matter if they make it to their second contract, right? You use them up, and then, especially with their style of play, use Taylor up as long as you can, and then move on to the next thing.
I feel like if you're Derrick Henry, you're just like, you draft this kid. Do you even want to, play under the franchise tag at that point? Go ahead, Tim.
yeah. No, I was just to add on to that. It looks like just looking over Tennessee's roster, they're a team that kind of doesn't have a tell. They kind of go back and forth between offense and defense. Whether it's been Jeffrey Simmons last year, they took Rashaan Evans. Year before that, and Adoree Jackson, but then they go take Corey Davis in 17 in the first round, A.J. Brown. So they've kind of gone both ways in
Right.
fixing their team. They don't draft heavily one way or the other.
But
So
I think there's similar style running backs you could have had later, and you just traded. Who was they traded to Denver? The nose tackle,
Jarrell Casey.
Casey. So to me that was more of a need than a second running back that you're going to give 150 carries to.
But I don't know. I kind of like it. It's funny because most teams.
I'm just playing the devil advocate. I'm just
Sure.
arguing the
It's
other
like you
side.
look at Tennessee's roster last year and you're like, oh, they have Henry and Deion Lewis. Oh, they have Thunder and Lightning. Well, Deion Lewis hardly saw the field. And then a lot of these teams today look at Philly last year. Oh, we have Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders. Or we have, this speed back versus when New Orleans did it with Mark Ingram and Kamara. I think it's kind of cool to go out there and say, all right, Derrick Henry pounded you for 4 or 5 downs, and we're going to give him a rest. Now you get this other guy that just goes in there and does the exact same thing. So it's like, hey, you know what your strengths are. You're drafting towards your strength. So I could see the merit of the pick. It does make sense. I mean, unless you're sold on David Llewellyn as your number 2 running back.
Nobody sold on him.
Yeah, I don't think there's another running back that fits as well as in their system. I know there's some good running backs that are going to be very good NFL players, but this guy ran a 4.39 40, and he's a big, strong back. So I think he's going to be a special player, just maybe not year 1.
Yeah. All right. PJ, you have another pick as the Green Bay Packers.
Yep. Well, there's a glaring need at wide receiver. So
For those of you watching at home,
That's
I love my father-in-law. I'm just saying.
they do need a receiver. So
Hey,
I'm
divided
struggling.
the teams, who knew that it was going to go like this? Oh man.
So I'm really torn between Denzel Mims and T. Higgins. Gosh.
Hey, we have some skill position players for the rest of us. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Denzel Mims because he did suffer through that injury and still was productive. So we are going with Denzel Mims as our first pick, wide receiver out of Baylor.
Wide receiver here, I totally agree with PJ. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know you are.
Yeah.
This is like the only place I can give him a hard time that's safe. I need distance.
Yeah, Green Bay's had some young receivers that haven't really panned out. And there has to be a compliment to Devontae Adams.
They brought in Devin Funchess. There's your compliment right there.
Okay. This is a different type of player. So I think the three of them could work well together.
Yeah.
You know, the window's closing on Aaron Rodgers. Last year was not a super productive season for his standards.
Yeah. All right, boys below, what you guys got? Anything
No,
else?
it definitely answers something. You know, you got to have somebody that complements Devontae Adams. You need receiver. That was the dream come true for GM PJ. They did need a receiver, so that's a great pick.
Hey, I haven't picked any quarterbacks. Not yet.
It's got to be hurting you.
Yeah, it is.
I'm very disappointed in the pick because I have San Fran on deck and I was going to take him. So, no, he fits perfectly into what Green Bay does. 6'3", 205, 210, maybe even 215. But he's going to be a starter for them. Catch radius.
What's his speed?
Long. He has good long speed. Does anyone
ran a 4.38 40?
I mean, come on.
That's
So-
to piggyback what you're saying. That's exactly what they need because they had the route runner in Adams.
Yeah, and this guy, it's kind of they were looking for it in that second guy
Since
that you
Jordy
can
left.
you can just throw it up and go get it. 6'3" with 4.38. I mean, come on, it's a match made in heaven. He's not great laterally, but just his radius and Rodgers is too on target to worry about. You know, he could put it outside the body and go catch it.
Hey, you know who they said last year wasn't great laterally? That was DK Metcalf, right?
Yeah.
So the cone drill he just was terrible in, and if
And
you
just
run
like
certain
with-
routes, you just dominate your routes.
He ran a worse three-cone drill than Tom Brady.
And look what we talked about earlier. It's not necessarily about the talent of the receivers. Look at your quarterback. Go
Right.
put me with Aaron Rodgers. I don't care. If you put me on Green Bay right now, I'm 38. I'm going to catch 3 touchdowns this year. Put the ball in the air.
Hey,
I'm
38, 6'8" all day.
Yeah.
Touchdowns, box out.
Yeah.
Look at those hands. Hey, if I put him up here, mine look just as big.
All right, we'll put him next to the head. Size comparison. So, but anyway, great pick. I was going to take Mims in the next pick, so I really like that. And he brings a lot of good things to Green Bay.
I will carry it on, San Fran. You are now up.
Which brings me to the next pick, which now I have to kind of switch gears a little bit, kind of distraught that Mims wasn't there. But guess what?
That's the theme of your night so far.
Oh, I know. Well, it happens, and it happens in the draft. So looking at my board, no, looking at Steve's too, unless I missed a pick. San Fran, earlier in the draft, we went and took a replacement defensive tackle. We took Javon Kinlaw out of South Carolina to kind of fill that hole in the D-line and replenish the pass rushing front that they're definitely known for. So we know there's kind of a hole at receiver. They have a few guys. They are obviously a run-first team. They took 2 receivers last year in the second and third round, respectively. They still have Pettis, who didn't do much in fantasy, as we all know.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Y'all see my eyebrows? That was my 5th rounder. Yikes.
There's not a ton of needs on this team, but seeing as how I don't want to maybe reach for a receiver, since PJ stole my pick, and he's still on the board, we're going to take Christian Fulton, corner, out of LSU, because Richard Sherman, as good as he is only getting older. I don't know how strongly –
That was such a good pick. You made me close something out I didn't want to.
I don't know how strongly they feel in like Ahkello Witherspoon. I know they have Jason Verrett on the roster, but they're
His 8th ACL.
right. So they're strong at safety, but just being kind of value right there. I don't think that he should have maybe been on the board. And bolstering a defense that was that good last year when they missed so many players in the front seven for such long periods of time. I know Bosa missed a few weeks. So this kid is the number one recruit coming out of high school in 2015. He's a man cover guy. He could play up at the line of scrimmage. And maybe his only negative is he can get a little bit stronger. He doesn't play the ball as well, but when you have guys rushing the passer that frequently in San Francisco, the ball's going to kind of fall into your lap. So press man, heavy man, I think it's a good fit for Fulton out in San Francisco.
I don't want to speak to you right now.
Anyone's thoughts other than Steve's, who's pretty disappointed in the fact that I took his pick?
I mean, Steve's been raving about him since we did our, when we went through our positional rankings. When I threw out my third guy, which was Gladney, he was all over this kid. The guy was part of the national championship team, ran a 4.46, seems to be very talented. And like you said, I mean, you have a luxury right now if you're San Francisco. You are just throwing this in now to add to your defense. And corner was a slight bit of need for you guys, just at least on the opposite end of Sherman. So at this point, you can't go wrong with the pick. And, Steve's been pretty spot on with some of his predictions on certain players from last year's draft. So I'm all about it. PJ, you got anything?
I was just going to say, if you look – I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying the one knock is just that he's a little slight framed, but he could definitely get bigger. I mean, he's a young kid, so who's to say he can't hit the weight room and just bulk up? But, yeah, he was – I almost picked him, too, a few picks ago. So
Stop lying.
No, I won't. No, not for my two offensive picks. For the Saints. For the Saints.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding around. What we talked about earlier is drafting to your division. So if you look at the NFC West, we just talked about DK Metcalf out there in Seattle. And did Arizona just get a receiver this offseason? I can't recall.
Yeah. I think they got somebody for like dimes on for pennies on the dollar.
So between DeAndre Hopkins, whether he's going to cover – I think he's going to cover that bigger receiver, although Sherman can handle it. But I just think it's a good pickup to draft to your division. So
very true. I mean, you're asking Sherman another year older. He's another year removed from that Achilles injury, but asking him to go cover. We saw Sammy Watkins famously burn him on that play in the Super Bowl that they showed over and over again. So.
He's 32, so.
Yeah. Well, eventually, they need to really consider moving Sherman to safety to prolong that career because that's a guy you want on the field, but he is losing a step.
Yeah. All right. Well, Steve, with that, you are up, man, with the last pick of the first round.
Does anybody want to come get in front of the Colts? He's a dream scenario. This guy falls to him.
Well, you're saying Cincinnati's not going to take Jordan Love and just have the –
I don't think – I mean, maybe they pull a little Kirk Cousins move on him. Hey, we're going to make sure you're the guy. A little pressure here.
It's definitely a great spot for a trade-up. We saw the Ravens go get Lamar Jackson at 32, and it's a spot where you see guys slip and teams go up and get their guy. But at this point, my teams are gonna just hold off.
Well, I think the biggest needs on this team, unless anybody has anything else they want to say. No. All right. Is cornerback, interior line, and running back. I feel like anything and everything is kind of a reach here. So it's just almost position availability. I really wanted to take care of this interior line, but you took Ruiz, and that was my pick.
Yeah.
I'm thinking leaning Cushenberry, but I think that it's way too early for him. And I don't want to overdraft somebody.
you want a running back. I can hear CJ. He's whispering right now. You don't see him, but he's doing it.
The fantasy world wants a running back. I don't know if the Chiefs actually need one, do they? I mean, who should have won the Super Bowl MVP this past year?
That's a very, very great point.
Yeah. Either Williams, neither one of them holds up too well.
True. They can't stay healthy, especially Dean. So, but if they already won a Super Bowl without an elite draft pick of a running back, why get one now?
Well, like you said, for fantasy purposes.
Andy Reid has always had a knack for finding running backs later in drafts.
True. Mm-hmm.
So
Damian Williams is undrafted.
Damian Williams undrafted. Westbrook was a 3rd-round pick. What was the guy that
Darwin Thompson was a 6th rounder last year.
The guy who plays for the Browns now. Kareem Hunt was a 3rd-round pick. Well, yeah, that's what I meant. So yeah, I'm leaning corner, which is a position of need. Safety it's like a 3rd, 4th need for us, but I don't really think a safety is the right move here.
They have Tyrann Mathieu. Their corners, you're looking at Bashad Breeland, Travarius Ward, and Rashad Fenton.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and take – you took Fulton. I thought Fulton would be fantastic here. I'll take Jalen Johnson out of Utah, the corner. Lock it up, and that's the end of the first round, guys.
Yeah,
I like that pick.
Yeah.
I like it. That could have worked in New Orleans too. I forgot about Jalen Johnson. What was his combine? Do you guys know?
Yeah, I got it up here. He ran a 4.5 40.
Oh, okay. And how big is he?
He's not the biggest guy in the room. He's a shade under 6 feet, I believe. He's 193 pounds, so he's a little light.
And he's not exactly elite speed either. So,
no,
but
some guys are better on tape, quicker.
Yeah, the comp I have on Jalen Johnson is Vontae Davis, actually, who was the Dolphins took him in the first round, the 25th pick in 2009, I think. So they say he has a high ceiling as a lockdown. The biggest flaw for him is going to be like getting boxed out by bigger receivers since he is a little bit slight. He can definitely mirror receivers, but he has average size and length, arm length. So he's better in press man, but he can do a little bit of zone coverage. But he'll be a boundary corner for them. I think it's a pretty solid pick.
Yeah, he's a quick athlete. He's got loose athlete. He's got quick feet. He's pretty lucid in his change of direction. So, I mean, it's more about – he probably could have maybe gone the top end of that second, but it's a necessity for KC to grab another corner, and they're not going to be on the board for a while because they're too busy polishing their rings.
Oh, man.
So not to go out of order here, but since we're done – I wanted to pose a question before Chris wraps everything up, and maybe go around the horn looking at the board. And I would like everyone to say the one player that they felt should be gone, but is still available on the board, and no easy way outs. Can't use Jordan Love, Chris. So
yeah, I honestly I'll go first. I love his potential, but I'm also terrified of him, especially with Phillip Rivers on a 1-year deal. I don't think today he's the best player. Does he have potential to be one of the best players in this draft? Sure, but that's potential will get you fired. Steve says it all the time. The guy that I thought would be gone, and it's probably he fell probably because his combine killed him, was AJ Epinesa.
Yeah, I agree.
His combine times. I mean, he was weak in any of the strength drills. He was slower than anticipated, and so many people put the underwear Olympics are everything for people, but it's like the guy produced on the field. So I thought he would be gone. He was mocked to the Patriots 1,000 times, but then they moved up for Herbert. So that's my guy.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. I mean, like I mentioned before, going into the collegiate season of 2019, they started doing mock drafts, and they had him going top 5 and possibly even number 1 to the Dolphins as just the number 1 overall prospect in the nation. Then Joe Burrow happened. And that was even with Tua being out there. Like, they knew Tua was going to still be Tua, but they were like, this guy is the truth. And then he falls. He's not even the first edge rusher off the board. So either somebody's going to get just a guy that's a gamer, or is this another like Bjorn Wenner, where it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Forgot about Bjorn Werner. That's a funny one.
PJ, who's your guy that wasn't drafted?
Yeah, so even though I picked for the Titans a great running back in Jonathan Taylor, I don't think it's going to happen. I am really surprised that DeAndre Swift wasn't picked in the first round. And I know that we've been talking about there's running backs you get in the second and third round, and the position has been devalued. But I just think that guy you could build your offense around him in Miami.
Well,
I mean, that guy would have been a great runner. So and not necessarily Miami. I'm surprised he wasn't picked.
And to play off of that, PJ, it was between running back and the corner that I took for KC. But I'll be honest, the running back for me for KC, I think Dobbins is a better fit. Swift to me is a complementary type. He might need to be in a system that, like he has been his whole life, where it's a two-back system.
Yeah, they were saying the same kind of things about Josh Jacobs last year too, right? Though neither one of them had that. I mean, Swift wasn't a bell cow back in college, and which is good for his longevity. But we don't know if he can do it all. He'll be a 3-down back. I just think he's good out of the backfield. He's not the north and south runner. This guy is so quick and twitchy, and he moves laterally better than I think all of them. I think Dobbins has proven to be a better receiver out of the backfield. So is Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I was going to say Edwards-Helaire to me is the truest fit for them. That's why I couldn't take Dobbins in the first, because I think if they can get Edwards-Helaire in the second, it's a better move. Or even, somebody in the third's going to pop off that fits there. Andy Reid doesn't really value running back as much as you think he might.
True.
Tim, did you have anything?
No, I kind of had a feeling PJ was going to go with Swift. On just about every board, he's the highest ranked running back. We talked about it not too long ago. But I have to agree with his ability to change direction and bounce.
Elite.
He's
elite.
By far. His pass protection might need a little work, but he can catch it with the best of them. I watched some tape on him the other day just to kind of recap, and you'll notice whether it be in Georgia's scheme or what they tend to do, but he bounces a ton of his runs outside because maybe he has that lateral quickness and agility, and he's faster than everybody, but I just don't know maybe on the next level if he's as willing to take it through the tackles. So that might have to be in a system to where maybe they have stronger blocking receivers to where he can go, or is he going to be that complementary back? So I kind of, in the same breath, I thought Swift's gone. People have him as the first running back off the board, but I can agree with that assessment.
One good comp when you're talking about, and it's to be leery of possibly drafting Swift early would be this. David Montgomery was a guy that bounced off of tackles all the time too, and at least after year one, and it could be the system he's in, didn't look as good as we anticipated. He's not as fast as Swift, but and he had a lot of miles on the tank too. But so it's not automatic that Swift's going to be a home run. But I love watching his tape all year long.
Yeah, running back is one of the hardest positions to actually, knock down properly. You have your surefire can't misses like your Saquons and your Zekes, but then, like you said, you find these guys that go under. Philip Lindsay, who's the kid that got paid as a Charger?
Austin Eckler.
Undrafted. You don't necessarily have and when you know how much they value running backs, why do you think Joe Mixon's talking about holding out through training camp? He's 24 years old. He says, I know what it is for a running back. I have to get paid now. And he's a tremendous talent. But, he was a second round running back.
Well, that was because of personnel concerns about his background, and he was arrested for domestic violence, right?
And I think that to add also another person, Delpit had a nice tumble too. He was talked as the best safety in the draft, a top 15 talent, and we didn't even take him in the first.
Yeah, my pick would have to be T. Higgins, wide receiver from Clemson. There were so many receivers that went, and that kind of pushed him down because it is such a deep class. But if you look at his stats, he had, I think, 12 touchdowns in 18 and maybe 13 last year, averaged 20 a reception. He doesn't have as many catches, but a 6'4" guy that can just go get the ball. And we get back into that argument, does Trevor Lawrence make him or does he kind of make Lawrence look good? But that would be my pick for the guy that kind of maybe got left out. I thought about it at 31 for San Fran, taking that receiver. And I know PJ was kind of torn between T. Higgins or Mims at pick 30 for Green Bay. So T. Higgins, I mean, you guys took a lot of the best players. So I'll take T. Higgins as the guy I think maybe could have slid into the first.
Well, to piggyback off that, we had talked about that leading into this mock that we were trying to do, that some of these receivers were going to fall because it's so robust at the position that you're like, well, I can wait a little bit longer and I got a pick in the second. I'll grab a running back that's really solid there. I'm going to take the linebacker instead. So now it's like, some guys are – it's like, do I want the number 1 linebacker or the number 5 receiver? When the number 5 through 13 are all pretty comparable.
Oh, and I found myself doing that when I had Oakland's pick, who had 2 picks early, and the same thing with San Francisco. I was thinking receiver for both of those teams because they need it. But since they had 2, it's like, well, let's wait a little bit later and see what happens.
Everybody could always use another receiver. I don't care what team you are.
Well, Des Bryant's still out there.
I would have signed him last year.
All right, let's run down, I guess, the picks that we had from today. So the Cowboys, they took Quavon Chason. The Dolphins took Josh Jones. The Raiders took Justin Jefferson. The Jags took Xavier McKinney. The Eagles took Kenneth Murray. The Vikings took Patrick Queen. The Falcons took Jeff Gladney. Trevor Diggs at 24, or Trayvon Diggs, my bad, went to the Saints. Offensive tackle Austin Jackson went to the Vikings at 25. Yetur Gross-Matos went to number 26 with Miami. Cesar Ruiz went to 27 with the Seahawks. The Ravens took Zach Bond, 29, PJ, and the offensive run. Titans took Jonathan Taylor. Denzel Mims went to the Packers. Christian Fulton went to the Niners. And finally, Jalen Johnson at corner went to the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. So, all right, guys, I got to say this Zoom version of the podcast was like a lot more fun than just staring into space. It was definitely a lot of fun. So we are going to be recording the second round. It's going to be one pod, however long it takes us, just going to be one episode. We're going to be recording that coming up in a couple of days. So that will be released, I believe, Sunday/Sunday night, somewhere in there. So you can look for that next week. If you guys enjoyed this, the video and everything, just comment. Go follow our YouTube page since we just made that, Prodigy Sports Podcast at YouTube. We're going to be posting this video here shortly. Boys, this was a lot of fun. It was good to see your faces while we did it. Anybody have anything else before we go?
No, I agree. This is a great format.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it's a different concept, and like I said, being able to see everybody. Hopefully, it's still hard to pay attention because I'm so used to not looking at something that I forget to look at the screen and not walk over one of you guys when you're talking or something. So as we do it more often, we'll get better at it.
Yeah, I got to get used to my signs because I interrupted a couple different times, and I was like, man, yeah. Used to the phone.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but I think it was a lot of fun, and I think it made our audio a lot smoother because we were able to see each other, and there was definitely less talking over each other. So, but all right, boys. So we'll talk this weekend, and we'll hope everybody enjoys this episode. I'll see you guys later.
All right, see ya.
All right.
I'm the prodigy. Headlines from the world tour, highlights from the scoreboard. Shout out the game, this is life for me. I'm the son, yeah, the prodigy. I'm the prodigy, oh yeah. When it runs through my court, and I need more. Shout out the game, this is life for me. I'm the son, yeah, the prodigy. Baby, I'm a champion. I was made to win, a beast within. In the game, I'm sire. Now watch me reign on my empire. All through the years, bulls and cheers, blood, sweat, bruises, tears. I gave it my all. Now everybody falls hard. Gotta get back up and ball harder. Three things gotta live within. That's the pride, the drive, the will to win. Oh, yeah. Now I'm a go-getter, not just for me, but something bigger. This is bigger than money. This is bigger than fame. I'm tryna leave a legacy, so you remember my name. Headline from the world tour, highlights from the scoreboard. Shout out the game, this is life for me. I'm the son, yeah, the prodigy. I'm the prodigy, oh yeah. When it runs through my court, and I need more. Shout out the game, this is life for me. I'm the son, yeah, the prodigy. Oh yeah. Oh, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm the prodigy. I'm the prodigy. Oh yeah. Headline from the world tour, highlights from the scoreboard. Shout out the game, this is life for me. I'm the son, yeah, the prodigy. I'm the prodigy. Oh yeah. When it runs through my court, and I need more. Shout out the game, this is life for me. I'm the son, yeah, the prodigy.